I never imagined the joy of bringing my newborn home would be overshadowed by a moment so bizarre and hurtful. When my mother-in-law, Karen, saw me feeding my son, Noah, she froze, screamed, and demanded we take him back to the hospital. What could possibly make her react like that? Honestly, I think I should have seen it coming. Karen had been acting strangely throughout my pregnancy, asking intrusive questions and making passive-aggressive comments. But I never thought she'd go so far as to say what she did that day. Jake and I recently welcomed our baby boy, Noah. After years of struggling with infertility, holding him in my arms felt like a miracle. The journey to this moment wasn't easy. The endless doctor visits, failed treatments, and sleepless nights spent questioning if we'd ever become parents had taken their toll. When Noah finally arrived, we wanted to savor every second of his newborn days, but my mother-in-law, Karen, had other plans. We didn't share much about our struggles with family. It was too painful to relive, and frankly, we didn't want to deal with questions or pity. Karen only knew that we'd been trying for a long time, and she seemed genuinely happy when we announced the pregnancy. The thing is, Karen has always been difficult. She's one of those people who thrives on control and hates surprises, which meant our pregnancy announcement wasn't exactly on her terms. "Are you sure this is the right time?" she asked over dinner after Jake and I broke the news. 30 is still so young, Bethany. You have your whole life ahead of you." I glanced at Jake, hoping he'd say something, but he just gave me a small smile and squeezed my hand under the table. "Mom, we're in a great place. We've been planning for this for years," he replied, trying to keep things light. Karen just shrugged. "Well, I guess it's your decision." Her tone was dismissive, and I couldn't help but feel she didn't think we were ready. Jake and I were financially stable and had been married for 5 years. What more did she want? Throughout my pregnancy, her behavior got stranger. She asked me overly specific questions about my doctor appointments, like what tests were being done and why. "Isn't that an awfully early ultrasound? What are they looking for?" she'd ask, her tone full of suspicion. As a result, I started dreading her visits, especially when she'd throw in passive-aggressive comments about my decision to work part-time. "Must be nice to take it easy," she'd say with a raised eyebrow, as if I were lounging on a beach instead of preparing for our first child. One evening, about 6 months into my pregnancy, she cornered me in the kitchen while Jake was outside grilling. "You know," she started, "you really don't look pregnant. Are you sure everything is okay with the baby?" I didn't know how to respond. Well, I am on the smaller side," I said carefully. "My doctor says everything is fine." H murmured, "I just hope you're being honest with yourself and everyone else." That comment stayed with me. I chalked it up to her controlling nature and her need to feel involved in every aspect of Jake's life, but it felt very odd. Jake brushed it off when I mentioned it later. "You know how she is," he said, kissing my forehead. "Don't let her get to you. You're doing great." After Noah was born, I hoped her attitude would change. I thought holding her first grandson would soften her. But when she showed up unannounced 2 days after we brought Noah home, any hope of a fresh start with her vanished. I was in the nursery breastfeeding Noah when Karen walked in without knocking. "I just couldn't wait to meet him," she said. But as soon as her eyes landed on me feeding Noah, her expression changed. Her face twisted into something I can only describe as horrified. She froze in the doorway, unable to say anything. Finally, she did, and what she said was totally unexpected. "Take him back to the hospital. Right now," she screamed. "What? What are you talking about?" I asked, clutching Noah protectively. She ignored me completely, pointing at Noah as if he were an alien. "Something isn't right. You need to fix this before it's too late." She spun on her heel and stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Jake came running in seconds after the door slammed. "What happened?" "Is Noah okay?" he asked, his eyes darting between me and the nursery door. I was still shaking, clutching Noah to my chest. "Your mom. She screamed at me to take him back to the hospital," I stammered. "She said something wasn't right with him and that we needed to fix this." "What? Fix what? What is she even talking about?" "I don't know," I cried. "She wouldn't even look at me, Jake. She just kept pointing at Noah like something was wrong with him." He sat down next to me on the nursery chair and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Babe, Noah is perfect. You know that, Mom. She's just being, he trailed off, clearly struggling to find the right word. She's being ridiculous. But ridiculous didn't quite cover it. Karen's reaction wasn't just rude or overbearing. It felt much worse than that. As much as I wanted to believe Jake's reassurances, her words kept echoing in my mind that something isn't right. Fix this before it's too late. The rest of the day passed in a haze of anxiety. I kept checking Noah, searching for any sign that something might actually be wrong. Was his color off? Was he breathing okay? He seemed perfectly healthy, just as the pediatrician had said. But Karen's panic had wormed its way into my head. What if she saw something I hadn't? Jake tried calling her multiple times, but she wouldn't answer. Each missed call only added to our frustration and confusion. Why isn't she picking up? Jake muttered after his 5th attempt. If she's so concerned, the least she could do is explain herself. That night, after hours of silence, my phone buzzed with a message from Karen. You can't hide the truth forever. You'll regret this when it all comes out. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of her words. Hide the truth? What truth? And what did she mean by regret this? When I showed the message to Jake, he was furious. This is insane, he said. I'm calling her again. She doesn't get to scare you like this. He finally got through to her the next morning. I listened from the couch as he paced the living room, his voice growing louder with each passing minute. I could hear Karen through the speaker. Mom, what are you talking about? He demanded. What truth? Why would you say something like that to Bethany? At first, Karen dodged his questions, repeating vague warnings about how we'd regret it if we didn't listen to her. But Jake wasn't letting her off the hook this time. Enough with the cryptic nonsense, he snapped. If you have something to say, just say it. And finally she did. Bethany was never pregnant, she said. That baby isn't yours. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Karen went on, and her tone grew sharper as she outlined her so-called proof. She barely looked pregnant, Karen said. I mean, did you see her during family dinners? Always wearing those loose clothes, hiding her stomach. And where are the photos, huh? She didn't post any bump pictures. Not one. Jake's face turned red with anger. Are you kidding me right now? He yelled. You think she faked an entire pregnancy? What planet are you living on? She didn't want anyone to know, Karen insisted. It's obvious. You two must have adopted that baby, and she's just too ashamed to admit it. I'm trying to protect you, Jake, you. Stop it, Mom. Jake cut her off and hung up. She's completely lost it, he said, running his hand through his hair. What is wrong with her, Beth? How could she even think something so insane? I didn't have an answer. My mind was reeling from her accusations. Karen wasn't just being difficult. This went far beyond her usual controlling tendencies. She genuinely believed I had faked my pregnancy and lied to Jake about Noah's parentage. The sheer absurdity of it made my head spin. Jake sat down beside me, taking my hand. Beth, listen to me. This is her problem, not yours. You did nothing wrong, and you don't owe her a damn thing. I nodded as tears blurred my vision. What if she tries to turn this into something bigger? What if she tells the rest of your family? I don't want to keep defending myself against something so ridiculous. He squeezed my hand tightly. We're not letting her drag us down, okay? Noah is our son, and that's all that matters. If she can't accept that, she's out of our lives. I wanted to believe him, but a knot of anxiety settled in my chest. Knowing Karen, this wasn't over. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, Karen's words replayed in my head. Bethany was never pregnant. That baby isn't yours. The conviction in her voice was chilling, and I couldn't help but wonder how far she'd go to prove her delusion. The next morning, as I held Noah in the nursery, I tried to focus on the joy of having him home. His tiny fingers curled around mine, his soft breaths filling the quiet room. But Karen's accusations kept replaying in my mind. Soon, Jake joined me. We're going no contact, he said firmly. She crossed the line, and we're not letting her back in until she apologizes and accepts Noah. I wanted to believe that cutting Karen off would solve everything, but deep down I knew this wasn't over. She wasn't the type to admit she was wrong, and the thought of her spreading her lies to the rest of Jake's family made my stomach churn. Later that day, Jake shared a conversation he'd had with his sister, who had called after hearing from Karen. "She's already planting seeds," Jake told me grimly. "She told Serena she's convinced you're hiding something, but Serena didn't believe her." The thought of Karen dragging other family members into her delusion made my blood boil. "She can say whatever she wants," I said firmly, "but I'm done letting her have power over us." Jake wrapped an arm around me. "We'll handle this together," Beth, he said. "She doesn't get to control our lives anymore." For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. Karen might continue her campaign of paranoia, but Jake and I were a team, and I knew nothing could break us apart. Not even her delusions. If you enjoyed reading this story, here's another one you might like. At my 30th birthday party, my mother-in-law dramatically revealed DNA test results proving my baby wasn't my husband's. But her calculated move to destroy our marriage backfired spectacularly with only 2 words from my husband: "You traitor."